is recorded live before a studio audience of ambitious future agricultural estate mistresses in the new media capital of the world, St. Petersburg, Florida. The show is brought to you today by thepartyauthority.us. Planning a wedding, mitzvah, or corporate event? For any and all occasions, call the Party Authority nationwide at 1-800-DIAL-DJs. That's 1-800-342-5357, where one call does it all. Visions of the future tend not to be too hopeful, and I, being a generally optimistic, positive-thinking fellow, don't often go down rabbit holes that lead to nattering nabobs of negativity. I encounter enough of it in the normal course of daily business. Why look for trouble? But I got sucked into Cynthia Kraack's new small press novel, Ashwood. It tells the story of Matron Ann, the new administrator of an Ashwood, Minnesota agricultural plantation, worked and maintained largely by children, sometime in the not-too-distant future. In Matron Ann's era, danger lurks everywhere in America, from the cities to the rural farming communities. She's a young woman whose life has already been hard. When she begins to tell us her tale, she has no idea the challenges and dangers that lie ahead of her. Ashwood offers a touch of speculative fiction, economics forecasting, and a bit of science fiction. It would make a brilliant, edgy movie in the right hands. If you're looking for a story with a strong female lead, look no farther. If you're looking for a tale in which people come together and overcome evil for a common good, this is a reading commitment you won't regret. Cynthia Kraack, welcome to Mr. Media.
Well, thank you. Thank you for inviting
My
me.
pleasure. I really enjoyed the book. I got to ask you, I'm a pretty upbeat guy, as I said in the introduction. You know, when it comes to thinking about what's ahead, whether it's tomorrow, next week, or next year, how would you describe yourself?
It's interesting. A good friend of mine read the book and at the end said, but it has a positive ending. And that kind of surprised him that it wasn't more ambiguous. I think some writers write because they have kind of a cathartic journey to carry, or a little aspirational about like what life would be like in a Greek island. And I tend to write a bit more, I think out of like trying to work my way through concerns I might have about the future. And not only am I a writer, but my original career was actually in I have a master's degree in labor economics.
Oh,
So I kind of watch the world a bit and say, how could these dots go together? And start from there.
so you have a degree in labor economics. So you're the one person who put their degree to work. I've been wanting to meet you all my life.
Well, yeah, thank you. Thank you much. I spent years doing the whole thing of doing executive compensation and doing all those kind of things, and eventually stepped off to actually do what I wanted to do, which is creative writing. Yeah.
You mean that wasn't filling your heart? That, you know.
No, no, it wasn't. But I have to say, all of that makes for a richer kind of foundation for books like Ashwood as well. Is the kind of the real world, the what has happened and where that might take
So
us.
when you're working in the field that you were in, did it kind of open your eyes to things that you felt that other people weren't seeing about the economy and the way we work, the way we live? And is that sort of where this took shape?
This I'll tell you two stories about where this took shape. One is, friends have heard me say for years that I had real serious concerns that an economy built on just continual growth in consumer spending is really not an economy with real sound
Mhm.
foundations. That at some point, you can't hold back individuals' earning capability to like spur profit and expect them to keep buying more and more. So I've had that kind of piece on one side. Um, and actually I went to a poet, a guy by the name of Tim Seibel's reading one night. And he's a very vibrant kind of urban poet. But for some reason, I came back and this big, hulking, dark residence, which is Ashwood, came to mind with this young woman walking up with one suitcase that had all of her possessions left in the whole world. And those pieces came together somehow. My concerns about our the soundness of our economy, and then this very human story about one woman caught in the midst of a depression and
Mm.
the rebuilding.
We definitely meet that woman at the very start with her one
Yes.
suitcase. Now I've started by asking you a little bit about your background, but I really would like you to
Hmm.
summarize because I know people will see this interview or hear this interview and not know exactly what the book is about from the brief that I gave. Can you tell a
Sure.
little bit about where the story goes without giving too much away?
Sure. Well, Ashwood is about rebuilding of the United States following international global depression, and about the stories of people trying to rebuild their lives within that. Trying to redefine what is personal safety, how do you build dreams within this, how do you rebuild dreams. And it's also that delicate story about how much do you give up of personal freedom for personal security, and how much do you trust a government which is really trying its best, but still is built, of people who are not always honest or operating out of the best for common good. So that's where we have some of the thriller elements that come in about corruption and power and all those kind of
And
pieces as well.
it's interesting. If you, how can I say this delicately? If you had described the book to me that way before I had read it,
Hmm.
perhaps I might not have read it because
Ooh,
that's what scares me
okay.
sometimes. These books, and I'm going to hold it up only because we're going to show
Right.
the screen, but uh, these books I think sometimes scare people away if they seem a little too heavy, a little too
Uh,
thick. And what I want to
yep.
say about your book is it, it's it's got all these deeper themes, it's got all this deeper information, but it's a really good read. It flows well. The people are well drawn. Where you have questions about the people and the characters and the lives that they lead early on, they get answered. And to me, that's what really
Hmm.
makes it work. And then I said in the introduction that I got sucked into this story, and that's true because I was very
Uh-huh.
skeptical going into it. I thought, this just isn't the kind of thing. Yeah, that
That you would read.
I'd have to be maybe kicking and
Yeah.
screaming a little. But it's a wonderful story, and it did get me thinking about all these kinds of things. And this is we saw in the last 2 years how quickly our nice secure world can be turned upside down. If you had told me 2 years
Yeah.
ago that the economy would be doing what it did, actually it's almost 3 years now, the flips and the
Hmm.
flops and the terror, I mean economic terrorism within our own country just by the people that we trusted to run the country, and they just did horrible things to us. I wouldn't have believed you before then because I hadn't lived through the depression. I'd read about the depression and lived through some
Right.
recessions in the 80s and 90s, but never been through something like that. Hope we never have to again. And then to pick this book up, it seems very real.
Well, the piece, Bob, I'm glad to hear you say, is that I think really Ashwood, while I write speculative fiction, I
Hmm.
really think that I write about people and about the kind of, ability of people to redefine uh, a new state of normal or comfort in their lives and to create that kind of sense of family or community. Um, so because it's really all about, like, you and I and what how we make each day go by. It's not so much about what the big folks are doing in Washington D.C. that at the end of a week, I'm not going to say, "Gee, it was a good week," because nothing happened
Hmm.
in the nation's capital. I'm going to say it's a good week because my kid got into a music program they wanted to. We had a really good pot roast on Tuesday night. Whatever. It's
Hmm.
that kind of element of people. Um, and so the characters of Ashwood are I think a nice kind of rich mix of folks who come together in a way
Hmm.
to kind of create that
Well,
new sense of
I
family.
want to ask you about some other future visions that other people have had. But let's take a
Okay.
quick break. This is Bob,
Yeah.
Bob Andelman, and you're listening to,
Okay.
or hopefully watching, the Mr. Media radio interview with novelist Cynthia Kraack, author of Ashwood. And we'll be right back.
Hey, did you know that you can listen to the latest Mr. Media on your phone with the Stitcher app? Stitcher is smart radio for your smartphone. Mr. Media is on demand and on the go with Stitcher. Download Stitcher for your phone today. Get the free download at Stitcher.com. That's STITCHER.com.